Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or as we like to say here at Shady Acres Woodshop, howdy. Today I have a piece of maple. It is roughly 7 inches by 8 inches and 5 inches thick, which is kind of thick for a smallish bowl, end up being about 7-inch diameter. So I think I'm going to use this piece, which does have some bark on it, but I'm going to cut that all off. I'm just going to round this up into a cylinder and make a bowl with a pedestal. I don't believe I've ever made a pedestal bowl on purpose. I made one once where I had gone through the bottom of the bowl and then I made a separate pedestal and glued it in there and returned it, and it turned out really nice. But I didn't set out to make a pedestal bowl. This time I'm going to give that a try. So let's get this mounted up on the lathe. I've already drilled my 5/16 inch hole for my 3/8 inch woodworm screw. I think this is kind of a soft maple, but I don't detect any bug holes in it, and there are a few cracks, but they don't appear to be large or long. It's going to be out of balance for a while until I get it rounded up. So let me get my mask and face shield on here and sharpen up my 5/8 inch bowl gouge, and we'll get to turning. We'll be turning about 590 RPM. Well, we're just about there. That's probably close enough. Let's flatten up the bottom side and put a tenon on it. Still about 930 RPM. Just marking out for the tenon. Now this is going to be smaller. This will be the bottom of the pedestal. Let me grab a swept back gouge here so I can create a flat side on this. Okay, that's good. And we'll move back over here to the side to start taking this down for a base. Well, like I said, I've never set out to make a pedestal bowl, so this is going to take a little bit of rethinking maybe for me. I can't go in here and make my base and make my pedestal and then expect to hollow out the bowl with a small amount of wood supporting all my turning. So I think I'm just going to take this down some, maybe sort of rough it into the shape that I want, and then turn it around, hollow it out, and then finalize whatever I'm going to do down here. That's probably the wisest decision. But I am going to take it down some now, and I'm able to spin it up to about 1400 RPM. I suppose I could kind of start on my outer shape here. Yeah. This is nothing like what it's going to look like. I'm just kind of roughing a shape. It's got some nice spalting in there. That's a good thing. Okay, maybe we should get this turned around and hollow it out. Okay, we'll get this off the woodworm screw. And as I always do, I like to leave the chuck loose, bring up the tailstock, and use the drive center to press my tenon into the chuck and then tighten it. And that way I know it's well centered and well seated and isn't going to come loose. And we'll go ahead and leave the tailstock in position for a little bit. It's always good to leave it while you can. Okay, let me get my mask and face shield on again, and we'll flatten this off and commence to hollowing it out. Well, see, I'm still thinking different, thinking wrong, thinking as if I'm just making a bowl, but I'm making a pedestal bowl. I guess what I have to do before I hollow it out, of course, is determine the outside shape. So let me get my tool rest reoriented and figure out a outside shape, and then we'll get working on that. Well, on the other hand, before I determine the outside shape exactly, I need to flatten this so that I know where the top of my bowl is going to be. So, okay, I'll flatten this. 1400 RPM. Okay. Oh, there's some pretty grain there. Alright, moving on to the outside. I guess I had in mind that I wanted the bowl part to be fairly shallow. Maybe 1.5 inches, 2 inches, something like that, right in this area. So I need to go from the lip on down in here. Yeah, I guess that's the idea. Nothing special about it. The pedestal is what'll make it special. Sure, some pretty grain though. Okay, let's move around and hollow it out where we still have some thickness to support it. I'm about 1/8 of an inch thick. I probably don't want to go much thinner than that. But I do have to go another 1/2 inch deep at least, it looks like. Boy, I don't get the opportunity to work with wood like this very often. This is nice. That spalting is beautiful. Okay, time to start working on our pedestal. I'm going to be turning at about 1400 RPM still. I've drawn a line here for what is the approximate bottom of the bowl. And I'm going to be using a 1/2 inch bowl gouge. And I'm going to get my mask and face shield on and we'll get to it. I don't know really what exactly I have in mind here. I want this to be about 4 inches. The The bowl opening is about 6.5, so I wanted this to be about 4, and I wanted this to be about 2, just roughly. And I'm just working my way in here. I've drawn a circle through the middle of this base. It's a 1/2 inch base, so I drew a circle at a 1/4 inch. And I'm just going to create a something. Just kind of split that base up a little bit. I don't know if that looks good or not, but that's what we have now. I kind of like it. Maybe we'll just kind of blend this together and see what happens. I'm using a 3/8 inch bowl gouge now. Yeah, I think that looks better. Okay, so we can probably leave that part alone and get working in here. What are we gonna do? I don't know. I wanted to get down to about 2 inches, and I think I'm up around 3 inches. So I guess just work it. Just work it. I'm just working it out in my head. I just don't know what to do exactly. I don't know what would look good. Should I put a bead down there somewhere in the middle? I don't think I'm nowhere near my 2 inches yet. Well, maybe 2 1/4. Closer than I thought. Or does it look okay the way it is? And is okay what we're after, or do we want something better than that? Stand by, I'll be back with some brilliant idea. Well, as usual, I just can't think of anything else to do in here, so I'm gonna leave it. I took a picture of it, I took it into my wife, and I said, what should I do here? Well, she's pretty artistic, but I hate her idea. She says cut a groove in here and burn a line, and I just don't like it. But it did give me the idea that I want to burn this line, so I'm gonna do that. And I think I'm gonna burn a line here, but I'm not putting one in there. So sorry, sweetheart. She never watches these anyway, so she won't hear me talking. But I am gonna put a line in right about here. Yep, I like it. She won't. So, I think we're done. Time for sanding. Well, I'm going to start by sanding the inside of the bowl and the outside of the bowl with my 2-inch sanding disc. I'm going to start at 150 grit, or 180 grit, I guess. It's pretty nice. I don't see any tool marks. It turned out pretty good. And what I'll do is I'll sand the inside and the outside, peel the disc off, and then sand the spindle part and the base by hand with that same disc. I think we're probably going to go with Howard Feed and Wax for a finish on this. So let me get my mask on and we'll get to it. So I'm going to do that up through 400 grit, and I'll bring you back when it's time to put a finish on here. From a turning and sanding standpoint, this is probably the best job I've ever done. This is absolutely flawless. There's just no tool marks, no cracks. Not that I had anything to do with the cracks. No bug holes. It's perfect. So I'm just applying this Howard feed and wax. You've seen me use it before. A lot of people do use it. I don't use it a lot, but it does bring out the grain real nice, and it offers a lot of protection for the wood. Not hard protection, but for the wood fibers. I usually use it when I'm in a hurry or just don't want to mess around because it doesn't require much. Apply it, wait 20 minutes I think, and buff it off, and that's it. So that's what I'll do. I'll see you back here in 20 minutes when it's time to buff it, and then we'll turn it around and take off that tenon. Okay, let's get this polished up. Turning the speed up to about 1200. Just taking a soft rag. I'm not pressing real hard, but just firm pressure. And just for good measure, we'll do it in reverse as well. I do want to get down inside these burned grooves that I made. Make sure I get all of it out of there. And I'll get this turned around and we'll take that tenon off. Just put my woodworm screw in because the block of wood that I'm going to use to drive this has a hole for my woodworm screw. And that's this one with the padded surface on it. Then we'll just place the bowl over that padded surface and bring up the tailstock. Still have the hole there for reference. Jiggle this around a little bit, make sure that it feels centered. Spin it up. Hold my thumb over here and see what kind of, if we're centered up or not. Feels real good. And we'll just take a, let's see, 1/2 inch standard grind bowl gouge, turning at about 700 RPM for this piece. Check for clearance. We're good. I'll switch to a 3/8 inch swept back bowl gouge to finish removing the tenon. And slow the speed down here a little bit, about 500, just to work at it. Now that I have enough meat out of the way, I'm going to turn the speed down to around 200, and I'm just going to place the bevel of the gouge against the bottom of the piece. A lot of sideward pressure to my left towards the headstock. Right hand on the gouge, left hand on the switch. And we're through. And I'll just take this over here to the workbench and sand up the bottom. Well, here it is. One maple pedestal bowl in the books. Real nice grain, nice spalting. Lots of spalting. It's 6.5 inch diameter, 5 inches tall. It's just a nice piece of wood. And it was fun to do. If you like this video, thumbs up please. I'd sure appreciate it. If you're a subscriber, thank you very much. I truly appreciate that. If you're not a subscriber, you might consider becoming one. I put out regular videos about one a week, and I'd like to keep in touch. Your comments are always welcome, and I respond to all of them. So for now, this is Phil, Shady Acres Woodshop, signing off.